So I'm really excited to be on here this morning. I'm really excited to do this Pure Principle call. I've got some great stuff for you. I hope this is life-changing for you this morning. So, I love chiropractic philosophy. I love the principle of chiropractic. For many of you, you'll understand you got bit by the principle of chiropractic, into your practice or sometime in your life. And once you get bit by the principle of chiropractic, it never leaves you. It resonates within you. You become part of the principle of chiropractic, and you live your life within this principle, and you start to serve people within this principle, and life just changes for you. But here's the interesting thing, chiropractic philosophy, the principle of chiropractic is timeless. There's actually evidence from thousands and thousands of years ago of the ancient Chinese actually adjusting spines. There's pictures 3,000 years before Christ. So we're talking 5,000 years ago of the ancient Chinese actually realigning the spine, adjusting the spine. Now, obviously, it was not thought of in the same regard. DD and BJ came along in 1895, and DD discovered chiropractic as we know it and put it all together in the science, art, and philosophy. And BJ just expanded that to what we have today as chiropractic. The last 128 years, I think my math is correct on that. But nonetheless, so chiropractic is just such a beautiful thing, but the principle has been timeless forever. But the world around us has changed. So I'm going to talk today about how the world has changed and how everything in the world has changed over centuries, but the principle has remained the same. And if we can put that into our practice and then be able to adapt to the change in the world to deliver the principle, which is a timeless principle, to people in different ways so that they can understand it, all of a sudden the profession starts to resonate with people, and we start to grow. We start to expand. People start to have their lives changed because they get bit by this principle. So let's have some fun this morning and put this all together. So look at the history of the world. The history of the world, when you study history, there's been nothing but constant change throughout the course of history. And medicine, of course, the practice of medicine, which is opposite the practice of chiropractic, the total antithesis, the total opposite of chiropractic is completely different than, medical philosophy and chiropractic philosophy are at the opposite ends of the spectrum. And medicine has always changed. Ever since the dawn of medicine, everything's changed. But let's think about this. So look back to the pre-1700s. So we're only going back maybe, what's that, 500 years? 400 years? So, when you think about that, pre-1700s was the agricultural age. That's when the people who owned the land were the wealthiest people on the planet. If you owned the land, the land could be farmed and provide food for people. And you would have peasants living on your land, but to live on your land, they would have to farm the land and then give you all of the produce from the land. And that would be their form of paying rent. And they could obviously feed their families. But you had the very poor people and you had the rich people. Well, typically the rich people that owned the land were the lords of the land. They were the royalty. They were the landlords. So if you were part or born into royalty, you were wealthy. And there were different levels of wealth depending on where you ranked in the royal family because you owned so much land. But then what happened is that time goes on and we get into the late 1700s and 1800s or mid 1700s. And I would say the dawn of the industrial age, which is the next age after the agricultural age, was the onset, when Benjamin Franklin invented electricity. So in 1752, Ben Franklin, he discovered electricity by flying a kite in a thunderstorm, and lightning, of course, hit the key, and he discovered that there was lightning. There was electricity in lightning, and put it all together. Well, once we started to harness electricity, then the industrial age took off. And what happened was we started to, as a race, as a human species, we started to create things that made our lives easier. But what happened was then the world starts to change around that. So now you start to see wealth creation in people, and you start to see people that didn't own land get into industry and start building incredible wealth. And you look at you look way back at the Rockefeller family, who started from nothing and built incredible wealth. Henry Ford, who, used the industrial age to start to build cars and built incredible wealth. So now you see the onset through the industrial age of middle class. But here's what's interesting when you look at the study of medicine in that time, and I believe it was actually mid 1700s, 1600s, 1700s, the onset of medicine as we know it, the germ theory was invented by Louis Pasteur, who invented the microscope. And when you invent the microscope, all of a sudden you start seeing germs, and we all assume, medically, we all assume that germs are the cause of disease. Chiropractic principles stay timeless, but medicine all of a sudden decides, okay, germs are the cause of disease. Well, because germs now are the cause of disease, that gives rise to the medical profession and pharmacy. So, products start to be made, medications start to be made to treat conditions, and medicine starts to change. So you see this now as the industrial age starts to progress and we get the onset of the middle class. Well, now industry starts to be created, products start to be created through industry. Now we need a way to distribute them. So we go into the distribution age in the 1800s, and this was the onset of the railroad. We needed a way to colonize the land and get products and get produce to the rest of the country and the rest of the land. So we see the distribution age happen through the 1800s. And more people become wealthy as a result of that. We see rise of stores and outlets, and now we see the onset of marketing, where we're starting to advertise to people our services, because now we have means to get those products and services to people through this distribution age. And it's interesting because now, through this distribution age, now we have the ability medically, the medical philosophy, we have the ability to get our chemistry, get our chemicals and our medications to more and more people. So therefore, the medical, the pharmaceutical industry starts to grow as a result of that. Well, now we get into the 1900s and through the early and mid 1900s, and we get into the technology age. So after the industrial age and the distribution age, we get into the technology age, because now we needed to organize production, because production through industry, through mass production is starting to become incredibly great. So now we need a way to kind of organize things. So we have the use of the telephone and telecommunications and telefax and teletype, all these things start to happen. So we can now communicate not just with people local to us, we can communicate across the country or across the world now. So now the world all of a sudden becomes smaller, and the ability to get these products and get our information to more and more people become a lot easier as a result of that. Well, this is actually the time through the mid 1950s that medicine starts to think preventatively. So now we have the dawn of the vaccination age. And it started, in the early 1900s with smallpox and the smallpox vaccines. So now it was the treatment of these bugs or viruses or bacteria by injecting these bacteria and trying to create this immune response. Again, this is all medical philosophy we're thinking. So then we get to the mid 1900s, and now we have the polio epidemic. So we create the whole polio vaccine, and there's the live vaccine, and there's the attenuated vaccine. And just all of a sudden, this medical philosophy starts to grow and go in a different direction. Well, so then as we move onward, we get into the 1970s. And it was around 1978, we're going to call that the information age. And this is now the onset of personal and business computers. Excuse me. And now, and computers were actually really started back in the 1950s through 1960s, but they really started to become prevalent in the late 1970s. So now we have these personal and business computers, and we have now in the late 1900s, the onset of the internet. And now, all of a sudden, things start to change and grow even more. So the world's changing again. Well, this was the time that pharmacy really started realizing that if we start to show people how serious different conditions are, we can therefore start to provide them and sell them more medication. So the pharmaceutical industry starts to exponentially grow at this point in the late 1900s. And one of the main things that triggered this was the association with cholesterol and heart disease. So back then, it's interesting when we started actually studying cholesterol and thinking medically that the cholesterol was actually a problem and causing heart disease, which we all know now that's not the case. So it was actually causing heart disease. Well, then the pharmaceutical companies come along and they create these drugs. Lipitor and Crestor were the two main ones right around the turn of the century. And so medically, we started saying, well, now if we start to lower the safe numbers, the measured numbers of cholesterol in the body, we can lower it, from 8 milligrams percent, we can lower it down to 5 milligrams percent or 3 milligrams percent. Now all those people that used to be in the safe range are now in the dangerous range. We can sell them more medication. So cholesterol medication becomes the highest selling medication of all time, right around the turn of the century. And that's all because of this information age. This is all because of the way that the world is starting to change. So then we get to 2008. So something happens in 2008. It's the invention of the iPod and then the iPhone. Apple comes along, Steve Jobs comes along and has this concept of creating these devices. Well, now it moves us into this techno information age, and the world changes again, and medicine changes again along with it. So now you see the onset of Netflix. So Netflix comes along and provides streaming, movies that people can watch from home without having to go to Blockbuster Video. Well, sure enough, Blockbuster Video, as a result of that, goes completely bankrupt because of Netflix. And you see things come along like Facebook. And then you see, things like TikTok and YouTube, where people can share their information at mass, become celebrities at mass because they're using this technology. If you remember the comedian Jeff Foxworthy, he became a multi-millionaire during this age because he was sharing technology. And the way he did it, he actually, and his famous comedy line was, "You might be a redneck if." Well, he created these cassette tapes at the turn of the century, these cassette tapes that he would sell in truck stops. And truckers would go in and buy them for $5 or $6, put them in their cassette player in their trucks, drive along and laugh their heads off because he'd be talking about, "You might be a redneck." Jeff Foxworthy built an empire based on those cassette tapes, but it was the exchange of information. So techno information. So now you get these, at the same time. Now what happens, watch this, medically and pharmaceutically, the pharmaceutical companies go, hey, now we can actually start marketing our drugs, which are normally prescription. Normally somebody goes into a medical doctor's office, the doctor diagnoses them with a condition, some sort of disease, some sort of condition, and then would prescribe them a medication for that condition. But the pharmaceutical company says, hey, we can use this technology and start to advertise direct to the consumer. And we can create this huge demand for these medications that normally people would not even know about. So if we can flood the television and flood the internet and flood the radio waves and flood everything, all the media with this information about pharmacy, people can start going into their doctor and asking for these drugs. And then, hey, we can go to the doctors and we can incentivize them to say, hey, if somebody comes in and asks for this drug, we're going to give you so much money to prescribe so much of this drug. We're going to send you and your family to Hawaii for a seminar. We're going to give you laptop computers. We're going to give you all kinds of incentives to prescribe more of our drugs. And guess what? It blows up. It completely blows up. So the pharmaceutical industry, if you had shares in Merck or Pfizer around the turn of the century, you become a multi-millionaire shareholder. So that drives this pharmaceutical industry into absolute complete chaos. People are making all this money as a result of that. So then time goes on, and here we get into 2020. And the last few years, what's really, really interesting is now you see the companies that are creating incredible wealth, like Apple, like Amazon, they are now into what we call the partnership age. And this is going to make a huge difference for you in your practice, thinking about how can you get this timeless principle to people through this partnership age. Well, watch what happens here. Partnership age, people start using technology to partner with others in business. Look at what Apple did. Apple created the App Store. So now they have this App Store, which gives the ability for all these other companies, these techno companies, to start building apps and selling apps on the App Store to therefore create a viable company. And it only starts to just multiply and exponentially multiply itself. So now Apple looks at a way to partner with people. They create Apple Music. Spotify comes along, creates, a music platform that partners with artists, so artists can share their music on Spotify and therefore make money, and Spotify makes money. It's a complete partnership. Look at what Amazon does. They sell millions and millions and millions of products, but now they create affiliate marketing where you can become an affiliate marketer and you can start promoting products. So they don't have to pay for advertising. They just pay the affiliate marketers a percentage to promote their products. And somebody comes along and buys a product through that affiliate link, and that affiliate marketer gets a commission on that product. People make a living off of affiliate marketing. People are making millions of dollars just being affiliate marketers. So we can take that information, we can take the changes that have happened through the world and take that into our practice as entrepreneurs and start to think, how can we share the principle of chiropractic in a way that the world starts to accept it, in a way that we can get it to more and more people? Well, partnership is really the answer here. So what does this mean for chiropractic? Well, excuse me. So if you compare this now, you look at the medical model, and I said earlier, the medical model has always changed through years. You look at way back when we were putting leeches on people to bloodlet people, thinking that was the cause of disease, was bad blood, and the leeches would go on the body, and they would suck the bad blood out of the body, the person would then get better. Well, obviously that didn't work. That didn't last for a long time. And then they thought, okay, well, if we drill holes in the skull, that'll help release pressure and release evil spirits that were actually building up in the body. That would cause all kinds of healing to happen. Well, that clearly didn't work. And then the pharmaceutical companies come along around the turn of the century, late 1800s, turn of the century, and think, well, we've discovered heroin, and heroin is a great pain reliever. And if we put that in our regular, everyday, over-the-counter aspirins, people will have pain relief. Well, sure enough, they had pain relief, but they got addicted to heroin. And then, they come along and they say, well, now we're going to go in for these people who all have all these mental illnesses or schizophrenia, and we're going to go in through the eye socket with an ice pick, and we're going to take a hammer and drive that ice pick in through the eye socket to try to line up that middle center lobe and cut the connection between those two lobes and give them a frontal lobotomy, and that will heal them. Well, clearly that didn't work. You can see all these medical ideas and these medical miracles all of a sudden become yesterday's blunders. And then, we get to the mid 1900s, and then they think, well, thalidomide, all these females that are pregnant are having all these problems and morning sickness and whatnot. Let's give them thalidomide. And now we have babies that are coming out deformed as a result of that. And then we get into the Vioxx scandal in the early 2000s, where Vioxx was the be all and end all, for pain relief. But then it found out it was getting heart disease, causing people to have heart attacks and heart disease. And there was this multi-billion-dollar lawsuit as a result of that. So Vioxx gets pulled off the market. And now we've seen it just in the last few years with the COVID vaccine. And now, of course, everything's coming out as a result of this COVID vaccine, that it was causing all this heart disease and cardiomyopathy and all these. And now the relationship with cancers, people that have had the COVID vaccine are being told that their relationship to having cancer in their body now. And now you see it all the time on any if you're watching television on any level. The one big drug that's being advertised now is Ozempic, which is an actual diabetic drug, but it's being advertised to people for weight loss. And now, of course, you see all the problems coming out as a result of that. So realize that medical philosophy over the years consistently has always changed. And there's always been the next new miracle, which has then become the next new blunder in medicine. Chiropractic is just the opposite. Chiropractic principle has timeless. It has always been the same. It always will be the same. And that's why it's so important for us to be able to express that chiropractic principle, share that chiropractic principle, and teach people the chiropractic principle as much as we can to every single corner of the earth. So how do we get more and more people to understand the principle? That is absolutely vital. So now we have to understand the changes in the world and the technology that's been used and changed so that we can use that method to get the chiropractic principle to more and more people. So if we're in the partnership age, which we truly are, you see this, as I mentioned, with affiliate marketing and everything that's partnering together, This is a great time to partner with people in your community. So Lunch and Learn's partnering with companies to be able to become the company chiropractor, to be able to become the company health consultant is huge. People want that. Don't think that you're bugging companies by phoning them and saying, I would love to help you out. I would love to partner. What can I do to help your employees have a better life, to have less problems, less pain, better energy, better performance at work, better enjoyment in life. We've got the solution as chiropractors. We've got the solution, as people who promote 5 essentials, lifestyle change through ML, through Max Living. We have the ability to go in and change people's lives. If we took that and went to every single company that's in our city, no matter how big they are or how small they are, and started sharing that with them, you would be embraced with open arms. So Lunch and Learns are a great way to partner with people. You can go in and do ergonomic consulting. Look at the person's workstation. Make sure that their screen is right in front of them. Make sure it's at the right height. Make sure their chairs and their knees and everything is at 90-degree angle. People will pay you money to do that, let alone embrace you to come in and help consult them to get their workstations in proper order. If you were to go in and do nutritional consulting or weight loss consulting for companies or support groups, there's all kinds of opportunity there. You can partner with sports teams as being the sports chiropractor. You can partner with churches to be the church health consultant. You can partner with all kinds of support groups. There's dozens and dozens of support groups in your local community that would love to have you come in as a guest speaker. You can go to homeless shelters and partner there, charities. Anything that you can show where you're giving back to the community shows partnership. And when you show partnership to your community then will partner back with you. You'll see the doors open up in your office and people flooding in as a result of that. And you've done nothing direct to try to get people into your office. It's just a show of partner. That's just the way that the universe works. It gives back to you for the effort and time that you put into it. So build your identity and relationships in the community. Google needs to be your friend. You need to be a friend of Google. So you need to create an online presence. That's where people are these days. People are online. So if you don't have a good online presence, you are missing out big time. So here's the thing. Everything you do in your office, record it. You do a doctor's report, record them. Record every single doctor's report. If you do a nutrition talk, record it. If you do a makeover, record the makeover. You can then package it together and sell it as a product after the fact. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways you can do. You have a community dinner, record it. Record patient testimonials. In fact, we had a camera set up full-time, 24/7 in our office. Every time somebody had a great comment or said, wow, I'm feeling so much better. Hey, would you like to do a video testimonial? And we collected video testimonial after video testimonial. Some of them we would put up on our website. Some of them we would share on social media. But we had so many video testimonials as a result of that. Start recording everything. That will only bring, allow more people to understand what you do and give them the strength and encouragement to make the first step to come into your office. So we start recording everything. People don't want to buy what you're selling. People want to buy what other people are buying. So create this transparent demand. So here we are. We're going to talk about creating a personal brand for your office because truly your office is a reflection of you. There's always got to be a leader in the office. So even if you have multiple associates in the office, if you have a big team in your office, there still needs to be a leader. There still needs to be a face of the office. There still needs to be a key person of influence in the office. So that again is very, very important. So here are 8 strategies, 8 points that you can use to create your personal brand and get the chiropractic principle to more and more people. So number 1, have a purpose beyond making money. Your office obviously is a facilitation of your livelihood. That's very important. And you deserve, you put the time and effort into your schooling. You put the training in, through seminars. You put the training in to learn different techniques and really hone your craft. You deserve to be paid very, very well for that. But here's the thing is that if you don't have a purpose of serving humanity, you're still missing out. There's still so much more in store for you. So make it very visible, have that purpose. And I mean, we have this beautiful principle that the world needs to know. If you can make your purpose sharing the principle with people, sharing that beautiful chiropractic principle with as many people as you can, irregardless of whether they become a patient or not. If you can just have the mindset that I want to make sure that people understand that there is a power within them that we call innate intelligence. It is their spirit, it is their life, it is that force that flows through their body and it flows through those nerves. And if the spinal nerves, the spinal cord that travel down through the spine, if those spinal bones are misaligned at any rate, if there's an abnormal curvature, if there's an abnormal subluxation in their spine, if there's a subluxation, it's choking those nerves. It is destroying the transmission of that nerve flow through their body. It's destroying the transmission of that life force. It is decreasing the ability of innate intelligence to allow this body to thrive. If we can share that message with people and then allow them to understand that when we make a chiropractic adjustment, we release that life force, we release that innate intelligence so their body can become one physically and spiritually, and they can heal from any disease known to man. It's been documented, it's been shown, and we start sharing that message with people, all of a sudden the world starts to change. People's light bulbs go on. Say it unfiltered. Don't be afraid to share it with everybody you know. Go talk to, a convention full of medical doctors and surgeons and specialists. Share that principle with them. You will not have one person try to defame you. You will not have one of them. They all understand that on some level. They all get it on some level. It's just not their mode of operation. People understand when they hear it, and they may have never heard it before. They understand it. They get it. People get that and you'll hear it all the time. Why didn't somebody tell me this before? You should be the one to be telling people. So first of all, have the purpose beyond making money. Number two, stand against something. You can talk about the benefits of chiropractic till you're blue in the face, and you're going to get all kinds of naysayers saying, "Oh, you're just pumping my tires. You're just trying to promote what you do." But as soon as you stand against something, you create friends, because an enemy of my enemy is my friend. More and more people truly understand that the pharmaceutical industry is evil. More and more people, whether they voice it or not, they have an inherent understanding that the pharmaceutical industry is only out for profit. They're only out to line their bank accounts and line their pockets. They're not out for the betterment of people. So people get that. When you start talking against something that goes against chiropractic philosophy, you start to gain followers. So realize that being vocal is very, very important for your growth in your office, your growth as a chiropractor, and your ability to change lives in the community. Number three, become a key person of influence. When you start becoming a key person of influence, and that means not necessarily shining the spotlight on you, but shine the spotlight on something that people need to understand. Shine the spotlight on something, an idea or a strategy that's going to serve humanity. When you can start to shine the spotlight on that, people again start to follow you, and they look at you now as somebody with authority on that subject. So that's again another strategy, another way to build your personal brand and build your following. Your wealth, get this, your wealth is proportional to your ability to create a solution for other people's problems. The bigger the solution, the bigger the problem, the bigger the solution, the more wealth you will create. So if you can be obsessed with finding solutions for other people's problems and helping them to understand that within the principle, no matter how you apply that principle, and that's why chiropractic works in every aspect. Every single technique works as long as it's applied with principle. When people understand the principle, it doesn't matter what you do or what service you provide or how you care for them. As long as you apply that principle to their method of care, they will heal. They will get better. It's simple. It's a law. It's like the law of gravity. It works every single time. So become that key person of influence. Number four, create transparent demand. Like I said earlier, people want to buy what other people are buying. If people can see that you're busy, they look at you as somebody who's an authority. Don't be afraid to shorten your hours and have more people come in a shorter amount of time. You know, we used to open up on Saturday mornings and we all debated what time should we open up. And finally, we came to the conclusion we're opening up at 9 a.m. That's it. That's our only hour. So you want to come in Saturday? What are the appointment availabilities? 9 a.m. We would have 50, 60 people. They would all have an appointment at 9 a.m. Some would show up a few minutes early, some would show up a few minutes late, but our office was wall to wall people on a Saturday morning, and they would all, it's a happy, energetic time. You know, most people are not going off to work, they're just there, they're having good conversation, we're having fun, there's a lot of laughter, people are getting adjusted, people are healing, but they see how busy the office is, and that creates an energy, and that creates the transparent demand. You know, clearly they go home thinking, they think, gosh, this chiropractor must really know what he's doing. There's so many people there at the same time. We could have opened up from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. and had the same number of people, and people would be coming in every 10 minutes. You'd walk into an empty office, or maybe there's one other person there. That's terrible for business. People want to see other people in your office, even if they have to wait a few minutes. Don't be afraid to do that. Create that transparent demand. Number 5, change the mindset that time equals money. You know, I remember having the same thinking when I got out of school. I was under the impression that I needed to give people my time to justify my fee. So, I mean, the adjustment, maybe it only took 30 or 45 seconds, but I would want to ask them a lot of questions beforehand, and I would want to spend some time with them after the fact. And most of the time, the conversation had nothing to do with health or healing or chiropractic. It had to do with everything else. But I felt that they needed that time. That was part of the justification of my fee. As soon as I decided that was not the case anymore, as soon as I decided that, you know, they were coming in for that service, they were coming in to have their power turned on, they were coming in for that adjustment to have their spine and their subluxations corrected, all of a sudden life changed, practice changed, people started getting better faster, more and more people were able to come in, you know, because we shortened our time with each person, and we created a practice of tremendous retention just because we took that stance. So I would really encourage you, time does not equal money. Start thinking like an entrepreneur. You know, an entrepreneur is the first one to say time does not equal money. So we need to create these unification strategies where we partner with people, where it's not just one person serving one person in our office. Multi-doctor offices are absolutely the way to go, as long as we can create a great strategy and everybody's on the same team and there is a leader, there is a key person of influence, and we can serve the masses in that regard. Number 6, cultivate a core group of fans. So create a following. Here's the difference. You know, most of us are doing some sort of Facebook marketing, which is transactional. And think about this. You put an ad on Facebook, you're trying to attract somebody that's not looking for you. You attract their attention by some sort of ad, which is usually symptom based in most cases, because you trigger their attention by saying, okay, we are the carers, we are the treaters, for example, of lower back pain, and you trigger their attention, and then they click on the ad, they decide to come into the office for a low fee. That's what we call transactional marketing. So if you're only doing transactional marketing, I'm going to tell you a story. I was talking with a coaching client just the other day who said he is spending $24,000 a month. I've never heard anybody in chiropractic spend that amount of money, $24,000 a month on Facebook advertising. That's just his ad spend. That's not what he's paying to his ad agency. That's just the ad spend, 24,000. I said, what the heck? I said, yeah. So, I mean, my first thing is, and he told me how many people he's seeing. Well, it's not, you know, he's getting 100 new patients in the door per month, but his practice numbers are not relative of 100 new patients a month practice with any type of retention. I said, how long are those people staying? He goes, well, the average one stays anywhere between 3 and 6 visits. I said, well, no kidding. You're just, all you're doing is just, it's a revolving door. You're just replacing those people. So we actually talked about how to put in strategies to help people to maintain, to help them to stay. So we talked about re-examinations and when to put those in, and different strategies, different questions to ask, and building a questionnaire about their care. Do they remember how severe it was at the beginning, and what was the concern on their x-ray? So we talk all about this, and now he's putting those strategies in place. Well, I know what's going to happen. His retention is going to go up. His ad spend is going to go down because he's not going to need all those new patients to replace the ones, because more and more people are staying. So Start talking about transformational marketing instead of transactional marketing. Transformational marketing is when you start to build an identity in the community. People start to recognize you for who you are, what you stand for, and what you stand against. So sharing content with people, becoming vocal, whether it's on social media, whether it's doing talks, dinner talks, going out and talking at companies, but become very vocal because you start to create an identity. And when you start to create an identity that is separated from just going out to try to get new patients into your office, all of a sudden things start to happen. And if you want to build any type of longevity in your community, you need to create an identity. People need to know who you are. Even if they don't know you, they need to know who you are and what you stand for and what you stand against. That is the absolute key to building a big, sustainable practice that is going to serve you well for the long time and be something that if you choose to get to the end of your chiropractic career and want to sell a practice, you actually have a sustainable practice to sell because it has a solid patient base who has been there for a long time. It has a predictable level of income that's coming in without having to go out and attract more marketing. Here's the thing, if you're not doing that, if you're not building a legacy within your office, if you're not building a personal brand, very simply, all you've done is you've bought yourself a job. If you're using transformational marketing, or if you're using transactional marketing to grow your practice or to sustain your practice, you've simply you don't own a practice, you don't own a business, you own a job. So think about that. So take your practice into a level where you become the identity of your practice. People start to recognize you. You become vocal about what you stand for and what you stand against. And all of a sudden, you start to build this personal brand that people are attracted to, that people start wanting to follow. People follow people with a big vision. If you have a big vision and you can share that with people, you will create a following. Number 7, planting seeds, pulling weeds, and pruning trees. Create the systems in your office. Make sure you have set up time to work on your practice, not just in your practice. So training your team, putting these systems in place, constantly refining these systems so the systems start to work themselves, so that if you become removed to the practice, your practice is so systematized, somebody else could come in and learn those systems and sustain the practice at the same level you've sustained it at. That's what's so vital. So be working on your practice, not just in your practice all the time. And number 8 of creating a personal brand, balance does not equal growth. Okay, think about this. Balance does not equal growth. When your life is in balance, you are not growing in any aspect of your life. So think about this. You meet somebody new. You start a new relationship. When you start a new relationship, your focus, which is the opposite of balance, focus is the opposite of balance. You start focusing on that other person. You fall in love. All of your thought process is on that other person. How are we going to spend time together? What's the next step? Where are we going? What are we doing tonight? Where are we going for dinner? Your focus becomes completely on this person, and your life goes out of balance as a result of that. Your friends, you don't spend time with your friends anymore. You don't spend time doing the things that you did in the past because now you have this new relationship. It's the same thing when you have a child. And I'm so blessed. We just had our first grandchild. Austin and Sierra just had their first little daughter, Adeline. She's absolutely perfect. But now I know their life is out of balance. It was just the two of them before. They have their practice, they had their life, they would do their own thing, they would they would go out and have date nights, they would go to the beach, whatever. All of that changes now. Now you have somebody in your life, this new little precious little baby, and your life becomes totally out of balance because your focus is on this new little child. It's the same thing when you start your practice or start a business. When you start your practice, you are so focused on that practice and growing it, creating the systems, putting the new patients in the door, learning your technique, refining your craft, hiring your team, training your team. Your life is focused on that. But here's the difference. Here's the big thing. When you're in balance, you're not in a state of growth. But when your life is in focus, there's 2 aspects to focus. 2 aspects. Number 1, you can focus on intention. And if your focus is intentional, your life grows in whatever that is, whether it's relationships, children, whether it's your practice, your business, it doesn't matter. If you're intentional with your focus, that area grows. But if your focus is on distraction, then that becomes chaos. So if your life is in chaos, if your life is out of balance, that's what's happening. Your focus is on distraction. So what we need to do is we need to start creating intention with our focus to get our life out of balance and grow in that regard. And then we can go through seasons. Remember, balance and focus is a season. You go through a season of balance, and then you have a season of focus. Then you have another season of balance and a season of focus. And that's how you create a great life that's constantly growing. Tony Robbins talks about the 6 needs of people, one of which is growth. We always need to be doing something that's going to give us personal growth. And what a better way to do it than sharing the principle of chiropractic with people and allowing them, their lives to change, allowing that principle to resonate, that we have actually done or said something that's changed their thought process, that's changed their mindset and allowed them to grow in a big way. So realize that chiropractic without the principle is simply therapy. So ask yourself, are you just a therapist? Are you just a mechanistic therapist trying to correct spines, trying to change curves? Because if that's all you're doing without principle, you're simply a therapist. And frankly, therapists don't change lives. Chiropractors practicing with principle change lives. That's the big difference. So and remember here, let's just finish on this. The 2 biggest killers on the planet, if we can all accept the fact that through life, we have this incredible innate intelligence. If you look at it biblically in the Old Testament, God breathed life through the nostrils of Adam, through dust, through the matter. He breathed life into the nostrils of Adam to create man. We are created in the image of God, and this spirit exists within us, this innate intelligence, this spirit that thrives us, that allows us to function, that allows us to heal, and from a day-to-day. And when we lose that innate intelligence, when we lose that spirit, we die. It's as simple as that. So the 2 biggest killers on the planet are the 2 biggest things that disconnect that spirit, that disconnect that innate intelligence from the physical matter, and that is subluxation, number 1, and medication, number 2. Those 2 things, when they're in the body, when they exist in the body, they disconnect the innate intelligence from the physical body. They disconnect the spirit from the physical man, and the body therefore starts to die. It might not die immediately, but it's on a process of slow and painful death. So if we as chiropractors can recognize that and say, those are the 2 things that we stand for and stand against, if we can correct subluxations and help people live a life free of medication, we have allowed that beautiful life force within them, that innate intelligence within them, to penetrate and resonate within this physical body. We can express our greatest being, our greatest experience on the face of this earth. That's the biggest thing that you can do. Listen, if you want some help with creating a personal brand, if you want some help with your marketing strategies, send me a DM. I'd love to get on the phone with you. I'd love to coach you through that and talk to you about what can we do to help you become the #1 chiropractor in your community who's serving people in a big way. When you serve people in a big way, you serve yourself in the biggest way possible. Love you guys. Have an awesome day.